The late afternoon sun spilled gold over the New Mexico desert, its light stretching long shadows across the red earth. The air smelled of mesquite and dust. Out in the distance, a lone rider approached, his silhouette cutting a sharp figure against the blazing horizon. Jake Callahan had been riding for 2 days straight, his hat brim low over his eyes, his lips cracked from the dry wind. He wasn't here for trouble. Not this time. He had a delivery for the Apache camp, a trade arranged with their leader, Chief Redhawk. Jake was no stranger to the territory. He'd worked cattle in every corner of the Southwest, fought off rustlers, even crossed paths with outlaws. But the Apache camp had always been different, quieter, watchful, like the land itself was holding its breath. As he rode past the first line of teepees, eyes followed him. Children paused their games to stare. Older men leaned against poles, smoking and saying nothing. And then, off to the side near a circle of drying hides, 3 young women noticed him. Anna Miller was the first to speak. She was tall, with fierce brown eyes and hair braided with strips of red cloth. Her voice carried, even over the wind. "Look at that one," she said in Apache, but loud enough for Jake to hear. Beside her, Rachel Cooper, shorter, with quick, darting eyes that missed nothing, tilted her head. "He walks like his boots are made of stone." And then there was Lily Thompson, the youngest of the 3, her smile sharp as a knife. She didn't just laugh, she studied Jake like he was some peculiar animal that had wandered into the wrong place. Probably can't even rope a calf without falling on his face. Their laughter was sudden and bright, cutting through the quiet camp. It wasn't the laughter of shyness. It was the laughter of a challenge. Jake heard every word. Even if the Apache tongue wasn't his first language, he understood enough to know when he was being mocked. He didn't slow his steps. He didn't glare. Instead, he touched the brim of his hat in a polite tip and walked toward the center of camp where Chief Redhawk waited. His boots crunched over the hard-packed ground, the sound loud in the stillness. Chief Redhawk was an imposing figure, tall and broad, with deep lines in his face and eyes that missed nothing. "You came," the chief said simply. "I said I would," Jake replied, swinging down the leather pack from his shoulder and setting it before him. "Supplies from the fort, salt, flour, coffee, and the nails you asked for." The chief nodded, giving a signal for a young boy to take the goods away. But before the boy could leave, the laughter of the 3 girls drifted across the camp again. This time, it was louder. Jake glanced in their direction. They were pretending to be busy. Anna with a bowstring, Rachel with a strip of leather, Lily with a basket, but their eyes sparkled with mischief. "They don't mean harm," Chief Redhawk said in a low voice. "Didn't say they did," Jake answered. "I've heard worse." The chief studied him for a moment. Most men would bark back, or at least glare. Jake shrugged. A man's pride isn't worth stirring dust over. That night, the tribe gathered for the evening fire. Meat roasted on spits, drums beat slow and steady, and voices rose in old songs. Jake sat a little apart as he always did, carving a piece of wood into the shape of a small horse. It didn't take long before Anna, Rachel, and Lily drifted close enough for him to hear them again. Anna tilted her head, pretending to admire the carving. "That's cute. Maybe you can make toys since you can't break horses anymore." Rachel grinned. "Or maybe he's making his own friends so he doesn't have to talk to us." Lily chuckled. "Cowboys are strange. They stare at the ground like it's going to tell them secrets." Their laughter was like a circle around him, sharp, teasing, unrelenting. Jake didn't look up. His knife kept shaving curls of wood, but inside, a spark of irritation flickered. Chief Redhawk was watching again from across the fire. His expression was unreadable, but his gaze lingered on the 3 women for a long while. When the laughter finally faded and the girls moved on, the chief crossed the fire to where Jake sat. "They test you," he said. "Looks that way," Jake replied. "And you let them." "Easier than proving myself to people who already made up their minds." The chief nodded once, as if storing the thought away. Morning came with the smell of smoke and the sound of horses. Jake was tightening the cinch on his saddle when a voice called his name. "Jake Callahan, stand before me." It was Chief Redhawk, his voice cutting through the camp like a blade. People gathered quickly, sensing something was about to happen. Anna, Rachel, and Lily stood to one side, their expressions wary but curious. The chief stepped forward, his presence commanding absolute silence. "These three," he began, pointing toward the women, "have spent 2 days mocking a man who came here in peace." Anna's mouth opened, but the chief raised a hand. They laughed at his boots, his walk, his voice. They sought to test him. His gaze swept the crowd. But he did not answer with anger. He did not shame them back. He showed respect, even when none was given. The air was still. Even the wind seemed to hold back. "In our way," the chief continued, "when bold words are spoken, they carry weight. A woman who challenges a man must be ready to stand beside him, to face life with him. That is our tradition." The camp murmured, surprise rippling through the crowd like a sudden breeze. Anna's eyes widened, Rachel stiffened, and Lily actually took a step back. The chief's next words fell like a hammer. "You will marry him, all three of you." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush the air from their lungs. Anna gasped. "Marry him, chief, we were only—" "Enough," the chief said sharply. "Our ways are our ways." Rachel's voice trembled. "But our ways," the chief repeated. Lily said nothing at all, but her gaze locked on Jake. She searched his face, looking for some hint of mockery, but found only quiet disbelief. Jake's heart thudded in his chest. He had come here to trade supplies, not to gain 3 wives, but to refuse. To refuse would be to insult the chief and the entire Apache people, and Jake Callahan was not a man who disrespected honor. The chief stepped back. "It is decided. The ceremony will be in 3 days. The crowd slowly broke apart, voices low, eyes darting between Jake and the 3 women. Anna's cheeks burned with anger. Rachel looked ready to argue again. Lily, she just stood still, the faintest, strangest smile tugging at her lips. Jake watched them for a moment, then turned away, leading his horse toward the corral. He didn't know what kind of mess he'd just been pulled into, but one thing was certain. The laughter was over. Or so he thought. The news hung over the Apache camp like a summer storm cloud. For the rest of that day, whispers followed Jake Callahan wherever he went. Men eyed him with quiet respect. Women glanced from behind their work, some smirking, some shaking their heads. The children, well, they just laughed, not understanding the weight of what had been decided. Anna Miller was furious. She stomped from the fire pit to her family's lodge, muttering to herself in Apache. Rachel Cooper didn't hide her irritation either. She kept throwing sharp, quick glances at Jake, as if every time she looked, she was reminding herself to be angry. Lily Thompson was different. She wasn't smiling anymore, but she wasn't exactly frowning either. She seemed curious, watching, waiting. That night, the camp was alive with murmured conversations. Jake sat apart as usual, sharpening his knife by the light of the fire. He could feel their eyes on him. Chief Redhawk came to him quietly. "You are uneasy." Jake gave a short, humorless laugh. 3 wives. I'd say uneasy's a fair word. The chief nodded, settling onto a log beside him. "You could refuse." Jake looked at him sharply. "You'd let me?" "It would bring shame," the chief said. "To you, to them, and to me. But you could." Jake's jaw tightened. "Not my way." The chief smiled faintly. "Then in 3 days, you will stand as husband to 3 strong women. They will test you. But perhaps you will test them too." The first day, the morning after the announcement, Jake went to the corral to tend to the horses. He was used to quiet work, but not with 3 sets of eyes following him from across the fence. Anna leaned against a post, arms crossed. "So, you think you can handle us?" she called. Jake didn't look up from brushing his gelding's mane. "Not my place to handle anybody, just my place to pull my weight." Rachel snorted. "That's a fancy way of saying you have no idea what you're doing." Jake finally glanced at them, his blue eyes steady. "Maybe, but I figure I'll learn." For the first time, Lily spoke. Her voice was softer than the other two's. "And if we don't want to learn with you—" Jake went back to his work. "Then I guess it's going to be a long marriage." Anna rolled her eyes and walked off. Rachel followed, muttering something under her breath, but Lily stayed a moment longer before turning away. The second day. Jake joined the hunting party that morning. The chief had asked him to help bring back fresh meat for the upcoming wedding feast. It was hard work, riding deep into the hills, tracking deer through rocky canyons, but Jake preferred it to sitting around being stared at. When he returned at dusk, dusty and tired, he found the three women working near the fire. Anna was grinding corn, Rachel was stitching a torn blanket, and Lily was preparing strips of meat to dry. Jake set down the deer he'd brought, and for the first time none of them laughed. Anna even nodded slightly, as if she couldn't help but admit the man could work. That night, Rachel caught him near the water barrels. "Why'd you agree to this?" she asked bluntly. Jake shrugged. "Didn't seem right to insult your chief or your ways." She studied him for a long moment. Most men would have told him no. Jake's voice was quiet but firm. "Most men aren't me." Rachel didn't smile, but her eyes softened just a little before she walked away. The wedding day. 3 days after the announcement, the sun rose bright over the camp. Drums echoed through the valley. The smell of sage and roasted meat filled the air. Jake stood before the chief in a clean shirt, his hat in his hands, his boots polished as best as dust would allow. Anna wore a white doeskin dress decorated with turquoise beads. Rachel's dress was darker, fringed, with eagle feathers braided into her hair. Lily's was simple but elegant, the hem stitched with red thread that caught the sunlight. The ceremony was not long, but it was deep with meaning. The chief spoke of unity, of respect, of the bond between husband and wife, and in this case, wives. Jake kept his head high, speaking the vows as they were given to him in both English and Apache. When it was done, the tribe erupted in cheers. Drums pounded faster, and the celebration began. Jake felt a weight settle on his shoulders, not the weight of regret, but the weight of responsibility. Life after the wedding. At first, it was awkward. Anna still teased him, though not as cruelly. Rachel still questioned everything he did. And Lily was watching him more closely than ever. But over the next weeks, things began to change. When a sudden storm rolled in one night, Jake worked through the rain to secure every tent flap and keep the fires lit. Anna found herself watching him, her teasing words dying in her throat. When a group of traders came through the camp, one of them made a crude joke at Rachel's expense. Jake was there before she could even respond, stepping between them, his voice low but deadly. "You got business? Do it. You got jokes? Keep 'em to yourself." The trader left quickly, and Rachel couldn't help but smile, just a little. And when Lily's younger brother fell ill, Jake rode half a day to the fort to fetch medicine. He came back before dawn, soaked with sweat and dust, and handed it to her without a word. She didn't thank him aloud, but the look in her eyes said enough. The turning point. One evening, as the sky blazed with the last light of day, the four of them sat by the fire. Anna broke the silence first. "Maybe we were wrong about you." Jake looked up from mending his saddle strap. "Maybe?" Rachel laughed, not mocking this time, but warm. "You're still a cowboy, but you're not bad." Lily smiled, the firelight dancing in her eyes. "We were testing you, seeing if you'd break." Jake shook his head slowly. "You almost did." They laughed then, all three of them. But it was a different sound now, not sharp, not mocking, softer, real. From that night on, the tension was gone. They still teased him. That was just their way, but there was respect in their voices now, and maybe, just maybe, something more. One clear night, months later, Jake sat outside their lodge, looking up at the endless spread of stars. Anna came out first, wrapping a blanket around his shoulders. Rachel followed, carrying a cup of coffee. Lily sat beside him, leaning against his arm. Jake glanced at them, his voice low. "Guess I'm not the only one who's learned something." Anna smiled. "Guess not." Rachel added, "Turns out cowboys can surprise you." Lily's voice was barely above a whisper. "Turns out, so can we." And under the vast, starlit Apache sky, the laughter that had once been meant to wound now carried the sound of home.